At our wedding reception, my mother-in-law stood up and sneered and quote, "This poor boy thinks he can." At our wedding reception, my mother-in-law stood up and sneered, "This poor boy thinks he can provide for my daughter. She's just using him," until someone better comes along. My bride laughed, along with her stayed silent. But when they arrived at my house weeks later, they got a huge surprise, so my buddy keeps bugging me to write this down before I move on with my life. As he puts it, I am not much of a writer. But whatever, here goes nothing. I met Eden at my cousin's party 3 years ago. She was there with it. Mutual friend and honestly way out of my league. The kind that turns heads when she walks in a room. We hit it off talking about some Netflix show. We were both watching, can't even remember which one now, and exchanged Instagrams. I figured she was just being nice and wouldn't respond when I DM'd her later. But she did. Our first date was nothing special, just coffee at that place. Downtown, everyone goes to for their latte art, or whatever. I was nervous as hell, but she seemed genuinely interested. Asked questions about my family, my interests, stuff like that. She told me she worked at a dental office and lived with a roommate in one of those new apartment complexes on the east side. Things moved pretty quick after that. Within 6 months, we were basically living together at my place, a small 2-bedroom I'd been renting for years. Shed stay over 5 nights a week, had her stuff all over, but kept her apartment. Because the lease washed up, that should have been my first clue something was off. She never invited me, always had some excuse about her roommate being weird about guests. The first time I met her mom, Naomi, was about 8 months, and Eden had been weirdly dodgy about introducing me to her family, but finally set up a dinner at some restaurant, wherein Trek cost more than I usually spend on groceries. The moment Naomi looked at me, I felt like I was being sized up at a cattle auction. She kept asking these pointed questions about my future plans and career trajectory while glancing. My watch, just a regular Timex, nothing fancy. When Eden went to the bathroom, Naomi leaned across the table and straight up told me her daughter was used to a certain lifestyle that I should understand would be challenging for me to provide. I laughed it off, thinking she was making some awkward. But her face stayed on a live serious joke. Then Eden came back, and the conversation shifted to some family vacation. They took to Cabo. I told Eden later that night her mom seemed a bit intense. She just shrugged and said Naomi was protective, because Eden's dad left them with basically nothing when she was 12. Made sense, I guess. So I didn't push it. Fast forward another year, and I proposed nothing extravagant. Took her to the lake where we had our third date. Got on one knee with a ring I'd saved up for months to buy. She seemed genuinely happy, took about 50 selfies to post on her stories, and immediately called her mom, not her friends, her mom. While we were still at the lake, that's when things started getting weird. Wedding planning turned Eden into someone I barely recognized. Suddenly everything had to be top-tier venue that was booked out 18 months in advance. She mysteriously got us in with 4 months notice. Florist that usually only does celebrity weddings in the city somehow on board. I kept bringing up budget concerns, only to have Eden tell me her mom was handling most of it, so I shouldn't worry. But when the deposit came to, guess whose credit card got charged? Mine. Every single time when Id asked about Naomi's contributions, Eden would get this look on her face like Id just insulted her entire family, and say something like, "Mom's organizing everything, that's her contribution," or "Shell reimburse us," after she never did. My savings account got emptied, then my emergency fund. I even dipped into my land fund money Id been putting aside for years to eventually buy a piece of property outside the city. I never told Eden about that fund. That D becomes important later. The wedding day arrived, and despite everything I was excited. Eden looked amazing in her dress. The venue was admittedly perfect, and even my socially awkward brother managed not